All right, back with you, and we got the Springfield Armory, the SA35 back out. Now, before we start, we're going to let you know this is going to be a longer, drawn-out, an extended video, if you will, on this. So if you're kind of wondering why we're taking so long and all this going around and everything, that's what we're doing. Go back and check out our other video where we kind of compared it to a Belgium high power and kind of did a little rough look over at it and everything. So if you're interested in that, go check it out. That's more of the other stuff that we're doing. So anyway, we're going to take our time a little bit more, open up the box. What do we got? Of course, Springfield Armory stuff has been coming in these bags now, these nylon type zipper bags, which is pretty cool. Not bad. Got a little lock thing going on there. With the high power, if you're familiar with the history on it, the one real cool thing is, you know, we now have basically a high power made in USA. And I'm a big 1911 guy, but I always say the high power is kind of like the mistress for me. You can see that. That's the most awesome thing right there, is we finally got a American-made high power lock right there. So we'll go ahead and get rid of the box. All right, paperwork here. We got the shop manual, I guess you will, or the operation safety manual. All that kind of stuff kind of takes you through everything. Field stripping, you know, the usual do's and don'ts, safety rules and whatnot. I wonder if they have any kind of, they're talking about the safety. I guess you could add some notes here. I was looking to see if they had any kind of schematics on this thing. That's really cool to see. At least this one thing here is neat. They'll show you a picture of the proper way that guide rod goes back in there, because it needs to rest a certain way, and if you're not familiar with them, you may definitely get that confused. So that's good that they went over the reassembly there. The magazine spring, how to disassemble the magazine. Okay, here we go. Here we got some schematics, which is nice that they've added that, you know, and both for the slide and everything. Alright, the other stuff, you know, just warranty stuff. They do give you a sticker, which is pretty cool. Alright, I gotta say, I'm a big fan of Springfield Armory stuff. I think their company is wonderful. I think it's great that you can see that they've kept up with the market in the way of the Polymer Wonder stuff, including their classics. Again, you know, me being a 1911 guy, I love their 1911 stuff because they offer everything from a pretty much an entry kind of level 1911 that's right around the $500 to $600 price point, up to anything over $3,000, which is you know, high end stuff. All right, let's take a look at this thing, and there's some things that I just, over having it, checking it out, and you know, us here, the YouTube team that we got working on the channel and everything, we've got, you know, we're looking at a lot of stuff on this thing, and I gotta say, like, you know, one thing that I did notice, like, you know, some of the sites on some stuff where you catch yourself on these sites and they'll rip you right open. I gotta say, everything is pretty nice and smooth on it. And I know that there's been some reports in the beginning when this thing was first out that perhaps maybe some of the edges were rough. You know, and I'm not feeling anything like that. You know, I can take my hand and really, you know, go over this, and I'm not feeling like anything's catching me that's going to be, you know, dramatically uncomfortable or on any kind of high spots. The corners right here, you can see there. Now those are a little sharp, but not to the point where, you know, it's gonna, you know, maybe it'll give you a little mark or something, but not bad, I will say. Not terrible. And you know, the edges on the slide didn't seem too bad. And then up here in the edge here, I've heard some people say, you know, that was a sharp edge, or it cutting you open or anything like that. So there's been a lot of overlook on these, or a lot of people just diving into a lot of the detail, and in some cases I thought getting a little carried away with this, because you're talking about look at the MSRP pricing on these things. And I'm not saying that the price point is cheap, because it isn't, but it's also, we're not talking about, up there, starting off, getting into like, over 1,000 or anything. All right. So the other thing too is, no magazine disconnect. That's a huge plus. I did notice that I think some of the other high powers, there's like a part where like the mainspring has a plug or something on this. I could be wrong, but I don't recall them being flat. But the internals look correct. There's your shear spring right there with the little button tab that fits inside the frame right there. The grips are pretty nice. The grips, that I would say, is an improvement. Although there's something classic about the other grips. If you want to check out my other video, you can check it out, where you see the old school Browning high power grips. But these grips are pretty well fitted. You can always tell a good quality company as well, where you look at how well they're fitting the grips. And some of the grips on some of these other companies, you see where they literally look like just slabs of like 2x4s, or they've cut them up and just slapped them onto the gun itself. All right. Oh, the other thing too was they were saying something about the safety coming up and possibly getting in the way of the slide coming back when the hammer's down and everything. Now I'm going to push up mine as much as I can, and obviously there's no issue there. Okay, and then it works where it's supposed to. And then the other thing was, with it, obviously they've added a little bit more of a ledge on theirs, where people are saying, oh, well, you can accidentally, engage it during your grip, trying to get, as we try to get a higher grip these days, so the bore axis is closer right down to your thing. Well, I simply, with my 1911s and stuff, I actually just ride my thumb on top of the safety right there. I mean, that's just something I do. Doesn't mean you have to or anything. The other thing I did read, of course, I've heard that the parts are not MIM, and they're not MIM parts, and I don't see any casting marks. Usually you'll see casting marks on the hammers and stuff, and I'm not seeing anything. We'll get a little towel here and wipe we got some serious oil oozing out of this thing. We cleaned it up, but I'm not seeing any casting marks. Maybe you might, but I am not. So, all right, let's go ahead and take the slide down, or field strip it rather. Okay, and actually here's another one we'll check out, and we'll inspect this to see. And I have not actually looked into this. I'm looking into this as we're doing this. I don't see, let's see here. Yeah, I mean, I'm not seeing nothing. Usually you'll see even these little casting circles and stuff, and I'm not seeing anything. I am really not seeing nothing on there. Yeah, I gotta say, I don't even see casting marks or nothing. So it could definitely be true of what we heard about there's not being any MIM parts in this thing. Let me go ahead and clean up the frame here a little bit. I guess we just got some a lot of ballastol in it, but the overall finish on this thing is really nice. Again, I'm not feeling any kind of sharp edges that's really going to cause for any kind of cern. Here you got some jagged edges there, but this is not something that's going to affect on the outside. This is all internal stuff. Injector. Again, I'm not seeing any castings on the parts there. Now we ran about 4 magazines through this thing. You can see I have a more of a higher serial number. I don't know if maybe perhaps the original ones or the lower serial numbers when they first came out, they were having some issues, extractor issues. If we can talk right for the video. Okay, here's the other thing that I noticed, and I noticed in the first video that we did with this. The spring is a bit long, and the spring's longer, and I think it's the coils are offset differently than the actual like my one of my Belgian Brownings. It causes it to push out like that, which is kind of funky, but it does cause that. I'm not too wild about that, because you do end up kind of fumbling around with this thing trying to put it back together. That's just me. I don't know if anybody else is having that issue or not. It looks like they went with that. You can see. I can't remember exactly where some of them were completely sealed up, and this one's got that right there. But let's take a look. You can see, okay, yeah, the coils. But what it does cause is, you can see now the spring is kind of deformed a little bit. Take the barrel out. I was really impressed with the barrel, because the barrel is really clean. No rough machining marks or anything like that on it. That was pretty impressive to me. Now, with Springfields, my experience with the Garrison, it was called, that the chambers are really tight. And yeah, it sits pretty tight in there. The chambers were, I noticed with the Garrison, if you're a hand loader, for instance, or if you bought like a bulk bunch of 9mm ammo or whatever from maybe a show or something, if whoever was loading it probably did not bring the seating, not the seating, but the sizing and decapping die. And this is kind of, if you're not a hand loader, you're probably not going to understand this. But it doesn't completely go all the way down to the base of the shell where it needs to, and which caused some, it not to be properly sized around here, was actually hanging up because the barrel or the chamber tolerances on the Springfield were a little tighter than most that I've noticed. Say for instance like a Glock or something, where it's got a little bit more slop, if you will, to it, that allowed it to kind of eat more stuff, and where the Springfield, at least my experience with the Garrison in 9mm, the 1911 was a little bit more less forgiving on that aspect. Now, my barrel does have a date on it, assuming that was the date it was produced and everything, which is December 1st, 2018. So, cool. Again, I pointed out in the other video that I noticed that where the original high powers were put together as a two-piece, that was because they didn't want to machine off all the metal here just to accommodate this section here where the lugs are, or the the lockup situation here is. So they made this in two pieces, where it was done in two halves, and they just kind of put them together. All right, the other thing I want to test, which I've heard about the extractor tension and all that. So I'm going to slide this up in there and see what we have. So I'm seeing that it's hanging on to that round pretty well. So I'm going to say that the extractor, at least on mine, is all right. Got the little stick here, which is just a wooden thing. Where I wanted to see here. People were saying that it was sharp. In fact, somebody had said that it almost cut them. I don't know. I'm going to say we'll take a piece of this cloth right here. I don't see any kind of a slice in that. So I'm going to say it's not. Maybe it's not as bad as some of the other ones. I don't think. Yeah, it's. I don't say. I wouldn't say it's very sharp in there that were anything that caused for concern. I'm going to see if we can push on the extractor here and see if we can see what kind of tension we have on it and how well it moves. I don't know if you're going to be able to see this. We seem to have pretty good tension on that. Yeah. It seems to be moving the way it should. Let's see. I don't know how well you can see it down there, but I don't want to start, you know, scratching anything. But from what I can tell, extractor has good tension. It does move up and down properly like it should, from everything I can tell there. The insides of the slide looks very well done. The lugs and everything. Now those sights, you know, of course the sights they say are kind of, you got to kind of stick with what you got on these, because from what I understand, at least during the taping of the video, there's nothing available out there. But also take note how flush, and this is kind of common, I've got a Ronin by Springfield, I had that Garrison, and this was all the same style of dovetail sights, where look how flush it is to that frame, or the slide there. Look how flush that is. I'd imagine trying to get a tool or a pusher or anything, because usually what you do is you get it right on the edge here. There's not a whole lot of ledge to get, and you start drifting them out. I'd imagine there'd be quite an area for it to come, you know, slip off or anything. And then your rear is a U-notch serrated, which I notice seems to be kind of the thing that everybody's going to now. Once I first started seeing those on what was it, Wilson Combat's battle sights or whatnot, and got a set screw there. Let's go ahead and pull this base, the firing pin plate here, because those have been, I've heard of those cracking or whatnot, and I'm wondering if we're going to see any cast marks or anything on that. Push it down over here so I don't send this thing into orbit. Let's take this thing, and I want to see what we're going to examine this together and see. Yeah, I don't see any kind of again, no casting marks or anything. Nothing. I think that's just where the frame, right here, I think all that is where the frame rests against it, and then you got all the other parts here. But yeah, I don't see it. I mean, I've seen ones where you clearly see like these circles where it's clearly a casting done up there. Yeah, firing pin looks good. Everything so far with this thing, I've been pretty impressed. I gotta say, I've been impressed. I'm just, you know, and my interest to these, or my draw to this, was the fact that this is an American-made high power, and it was very close to the original. Now, they didn't deviate from it. Of course, they put some better sights on it, but I mean, we're talking, this is very close to the original. This is not any kind of wild twist that they put on it. Everything is pretty much like an old school high power. call me a purist, if you will, which I kind of am. I like the traditional stuff. I really do. I don't like when they start adding all kinds of crazy stuff to it, like rails and all that. I mean, if that's what you like, that's what you like. But for me, I kind of like just the real simple, as close to the original as you can get. So, you know, and everything for me, and I've torn down and got into high powers before in the past. They're not easy to do in a way, because of when you're putting all this back together, you got to kind of hold the hammer right and get the pin and all that depressed right, and the sear and all that. So you almost need a third hand in there to do it. But everything in there stacks up and looks correct, like how a normal old Browning high power reacts and everything, all in there. And then this whole area here, you know, where you got the trigger mechanism there, and the little arm that comes up to bump into the sear, the floating sear lever here, where it bumps right into that, and then you can see it come up and contact there, and it contacts the sear point here. And when it does, I'll hold this hammer back, you can see it moves it out of the way in order for it to fire. Here's your ejector, which how that works is as that round is coming back out of there, it's going to bump into this, canting the shell this way, and then coming out of your ejection port. Alright, let's put it back together. Let's see. Again, you know, I'm impressed. The only sharp edges was, you know, that I noticed was right in here, which this is not something I'm gonna be, you know, it's not like it's on the outside where you're rubbing against it constantly or anything like that. You know, that's not the case. So, and also I do want to say a big plus for regular slotted screws. I'm not a fan of the hex or the, you know, any of that. So big plus on that. Didn't have to go and replace those or anything. All right, I'll go ahead and put this back in. Oh, see, you can tell I'm a 1911 guy. All right, put the spring back in here. Okay, this is why I'm kind of, I think this whole deal is a little funky, because of the way, I mean, it takes a little bit more effort to do it. It's not quite as easy. Alright, now in the first video I did, it was doing that, I was bumping right into that, and you can see, I don't know, I'm sorry, you can't see that, but it's hitting that right there. Or is it not hitting there, or it has something to do with that spring? I was thinking of the barrel. Maybe the barrel wasn't lined up, and that could be having to do with the spring. And I'm not just, because the original, yeah, there it goes. It actually may not have been that. It may not have had anything to do with that. I think it had to do with the barrel being canted. Let's go ahead and push that to the side and see if we can recreate that. Almost. Let's see. Let's push it back to this side and see. Yeah. So that has to do with the barrel not being lined up. So make sure that barrel is lined up. Again, I think that's a problem related to the way this recoil spring kind of curves up like that. The original does not do that. Alright, so there it is, slides right on when you get that correct. So if you're running into that, okay, and lock that slide into place with that. And then you'll notice also what holds this thing in is there's a detent right there, and that lives, there's a ball bearing right there in the guide rod system. And that's where that lives. Okay. I'll go ahead and put that in there, straight down, And it has gotten easier to take that in and out since we've had it and messing with it. So I will say that. There doesn't seem to be any kind of sharp edges on top of the slide release at all. Maybe they've fixed that. I've heard that some people will talk about that. And the serrations don't seem to be quite aggressive. You know, no wood deposits there or nothing. And I'm glad they kept with the, you know, there's a certain look of the slide stop on a high power. This whole little look right here, that's part of its charm. That's how you can see it. So, but yeah, all in all, the Springfield Armory SA35, you know, pretty much their copy of the high power. And yeah, USA. And you can see I got a you know, a higher serial number as of right now. I'm sure there's other ones that are higher. And yeah, I have not experienced any kind of issues. Far as barrel movement here, let's see. A little bit of play, but we shot pretty good groups with it. We were out. We put them in pretty tight. So I'm not. The accuracy of this is definitely not a question for me. But anyway, the other thing I wanted to point out before we go is the this part right here. On some of them, it would look a little bit more pronounced and sharper. Mine has definitely been honed down, at least from the photos that I saw. You can see how much different the contour is and better. So anyway, hopefully you liked it. Little close-up and kind of rundown. Nothing too nitpick or crazy, but overall I'm happy with it. You got an American-made piece here for you know, right around what I think is a decent sweet spot price tag for these things. Where you know, we're not talking, I mean, they're not cheap, but they're, you know, also not terribly expensive. So anyway, thanks for watching.